Hello and welcome back to the channel, but today we are finally reviewing The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This is a game that I have spent probably around 20 hours in at this point, obviously doing all the main dungeons and the areas and all that kind of shit. But it was a great game, and I'm really excited to talk about it today with you guys. I've seen a bit of discourse online about how this game maybe isn't as good as people were hoping, or, it's too out there. It's not traditional enough. The thing that I think this game toes a very good line of, though, is drawing a lot of these inspiration from more traditional Zelda games. You have very traditional Zelda dungeons with keys you need to get and chests you need to open, and things that you need to do to get through them. Can you do all of these dungeons in sort of unorthodox ways with the echoes? Yeah, but do you have to? Not really. And that's the thing that I really love about it. I just don't understand how people really don't gravitate towards that, because it is like you can just do whatever you want. I think this is one of the best Zelda games I've ever played. I think it's one of my favorites so far. Take that with what you will, because I don't really play very many Zelda games and I don't really like most of the older ones, but I love what they did here. They took the best parts of traditional Zelda and they blended them with the brand new open world style of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, while still having this 2D Zelda feel. It feels so much like the older handheld games in every way, in my opinion. It's like Link's Awakening, right? That remake came on the Switch in 2019, and that was a really cool, fun, look back at what that game was and all that kind of stuff, and it was very clear that that is a handheld experience. They went with this cute little chibi art style, and they did the same thing here in this game, and it's cute, it's fun, it's easy, it's breezy. People, I think, just don't want very much innovation in Zelda sometimes, and they really just want it to stay traditional and tried and true, and I think that's totally fine. If that's something that you want, I understand, and I think you should be allowed to want that, but at the same time, it's super fucking cool if you give them a chance. This isn't supposed to be the next mainline Zelda. Don't expect this to be the epic that follows after Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. It's like, you remember, the DS games? Just think of it like a handheld Zelda game. All of those games have weird little gimmicks that carry them throughout the game, and they're awesome for it. I love it. Personally, I've been going back and replaying A Link to the Past, which is one of the greatest Zelda games out there, in my opinion, much better than Ocarina of Time. That game is so fucking good, and I can see all the similarities between these two. It still plays very similar to how a 2D Zelda would play. You can just make echoes of beds and break the game if you want to. You get the Cloud Echo at the very end of the game, and that thing can break the game. That thing is crazy. I also use the flying tile a lot. That thing is amazing. There's so much fun to be had in these games, and I think that's really why I gravitated towards it. But to get all of that just gushing out of the way, I do want to get into some more concrete concepts of what I really enjoyed throughout this game. First of all, let's talk about the world. The Hyrule that this takes place in is massive. It is 8 times the size of what we had in Link's Awakening. It's humongous, and it's so much fun to explore. With your echoes and things like that, you can always feel like you're breaking the game. You're jumping on these trees, right? You're doing all this shit that's so freaking cool, and you always feel like you're pulling one over on the game, which I love, and I especially love that when you're exploring. If you're determined enough to get to a separate area, you can do that. You don't need the permission of the game, which I love. It's a huge reason why open world games and this new age Zelda is something that I adore, and older age Zelda games are not, necessarily for me in every aspect. So you can explore the mountain area, the snowy area, the tropical water area with all the Zora people. 2 different types of Zoras, by the way, river and ocean Zora. I don't know the lore of Zelda super well, but that was cool as well. Then you go over to the other area and you've got freaking, what is it? You've got the Gerudo Desert, you've got the desert area, and I feel like every distinct plane of this world is magnificently done. There's a lot to do, there's a lot of side characters you can talk to, you can get side quests if you like, but also you can just beeline it for the story and still see a lot of the world. For the most part, that's how I played this game. I played it mostly hook, line, and sinker, going for the story, but also occasionally branching out to explore and shit on my own. Now let's talk about the things you can do in the world, right? You can make smoothies, you can do side quests, you can sort of just explore around. Exploring around is great, the characters you talk to are cool, great side quests. Smoothies, I don't really get them. I think they're fine. I love the idea of a smoothie. I'm literally drinking one currently in between this video, but I don't like how the smoothies are implemented in this game. You get 2 ingredients, Half the time you make a dubious one. What do I need to combine together? You can make a tonic, you can make potions and shit like that, and it's fine, but it just feels like an afterthought. I wish it was a bit more thought out. I wish it was a bit more like cooking in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, because I feel like you could really make some shit in there. But 2 ingredients? What am I supposed to do over there? I don't know. It wasn't my favorite part of the game. You can also get upgrades throughout this game, and you're collecting these little Zonai looking thingies. I don't remember what they're called, but you're collecting these little homies that look like broken down Rubik's Cubes, and once you get those, and you get enough of them, you can upgrade, like, your sword ability, and a lot of Link's abilities, which you turn into throughout the game, of course. That is pretty rad. I love that ability a lot. I had a great time with it, and I always felt like a big reward to get more of those. I only ended up doing that like twice though, so I felt like I sort of underutilized that. So all I would say is if you're still playing this game, I highly recommend that you use all of your crystal things before going through the last shit. Because it's you know, it's not that hard, but it's a thing, you know what I mean? Getting into more of the gameplay of the game, of course, we have to talk about the echoes. Echoes are the main thing of this game. Zelda can copy a ton of different stuff throughout the world and just paste it wherever. Control V that baddie all over the world, and I love it. I think it's phenomenal. It's so much fun, and there's just so many different things you can do. However, one of the biggest gripes that I completely agree with this game is the menu system for those echoes is horrible. We need different rows, okay? Just give me like 4 different rows for like furniture, you know, elemental shit, enemies, you know, and then maybe I can sort it within there because it is such a pain in the ass to go through everything. I ended up using, you can press Y and like sort them by most used or cost or whatever. I always did most used or like last learned, just so that I could make sure that I had my shit with me at all times, because when you're switching between echoes really quickly for boss battles and other things of that sort, it's such a pain in the ass with how poorly optimized this is, honestly. So that was one of my gripes. One of the things with the gameplay that I really did enjoy, though, was the fact that I can jump whenever the hell I want. So thank you for leaving the jump button in Zelda. I hope to God it never goes away, because that is why I like these games as much as I do lately. On top of which, you can also turn into Link in this game by like pressing the up on the D-pad, and then you literally just become Link, basically. Now, there's been a lot of discussion if this was necessary, if it was not. Thing is I think it was super good to mix up the gameplay of it, because occasionally when you're just spawning a bunch of shit, it's fun, but it's also like, okay, what am I doing? You just feel like you're managing it. It feels sort of like Pikmin adjacent, and it's like, no, I want to get in there and I want some of this action for myself. So you change into Link, and you have a specific time slot that you can do that. So you can't just be Link all the time. You have to be very sparing with it. And so I think that because of that, it just leads to it being used in very smart ways. I really only used it when I was up against really tough enemies that I wanted a quick copy of them for, or when I was up against boss battles, which I really feel is probably when you most want to use this kind of thing. People have said that it is the downfall of this game that you can turn into Link, and that Zelda can't hold her own game because you can't be Link or whatever. I disagree. I completely disagree. But I do think it was a great addition, and I think the gameplay variety was a lot bigger because of it. So I appreciate what they did with that. And the last main gameplay element would be Bind. Bind is basically the Ultra Hand from Tears of the Kingdom and like Magnesis and all that shit from Breath of the Wild, but it's here, and Zelda just shoots this little thing off of her and you can solve puzzles with it. It honestly works phenomenally. I think it is one of the smartest used things in this game. I have a great time with it. It's cool because you can also like make it so that if you bind to something that's already moving, you can move with it while you binded to it. So leads for some creative ways to solve puzzles. And a lot of the puzzles in this game, it's really just about knowing every ounce of Zelda's moveset. And if you know that, you can get through them pretty easy. But if you forget that, it can be quite confusing, and sometimes you might lead yourself to doing some really wild things in order to get to where you need to be. Graphically, I think it's phenomenal, and it looks great. If you like the style of Link's Awakening from 2019 that's on the Switch, you will like the style of this game. It's very, very similar. Should it maybe be a little bit more realistic to the style of something like, you know, on the 3DS, A Link Between Worlds, or something like that? Maybe, but I really don't have a problem with how it looks. I think everything looks very pretty. It's very pleasant to look at. It's fun. It gives that fun 2D Zelda vibe where it doesn't take itself too seriously. You know, it's not this big, grand, epic or whatever, but it still has an amazing amazing little story, and it's an amazing little game. It's just, I think that art style really helps conceptualize that this is just a much smaller adventure than what we have been used to in the past few years. Now, with graphics, we do have to talk about frame rate. That's the other issue of this game. The main gripe of this game is that the frame rate does not stay at a solid 60 or 30. I'm not a big frame rate girl. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I don't really care about frame rate nearly at all. As long as the game is playable, I don't mind it. I will say, sometimes during monstrous boss battles where there's a bunch of enemies being spawned in constantly, and I'm dealing with bosses, which really only happens at the very end of the game, I don't think it was that bad. I didn't really notice it anywhere except for sometimes it would slow down in Hyrule, like the town of Hyrule, which sucks. Obviously, it's disappointing. Obviously, we need to do better. I think it's a product of the Switch being a, 7, 8-year-old console. Like, it's an old console. I don't know. I think it might just be because I've always been a Nintendo gamer. I've grown up with the Wii and the Wii U, and my supplemental gaming has been on the PlayStation and stuff like that. So that my standards of gaming is not that high frame rate wise. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Does Astrobot run smoother? Does it look better? Does Spider-Man run smoother? Does it look better? Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you're getting this game, it's because you like Zelda. You can't play Zelda on anything else. Should it be better? Yeah, Nintendo, fix your frame rates. But they will. I have 100, I think this would be a problem if this game came out on the Switch 2 and it was running like this. But I just think I understand that they're pushing the limits of what the Switch can do at this point, and if we're gonna suffer a little bit of a frame rate drop occasionally that I barely notice, it's not gonna get to me that much. I know some people, it's a make or break thing, and so if frame rate for you is the biggest deal, that's totally fine, and this game is not gonna be for you, because it does stutter at some points, okay? There are some times where it drops too low, okay? I get it. It's disappointing. It's not going to make me dislike an entire game that I think was expertly crafted, that blends the styles of both, open world Zelda and linear Zelda so perfectly. It's not going to do that. I love being able to play as Zelda. I love this game so much. After all of that, though, one of the main things people wanted, like we talked about a little bit earlier, was dungeons. And dungeons are indeed back. Dungeons in this game are done wonderfully. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are a lot of your mainline dungeons, and then there's sort of supplemental tasks that sort of feel like a dungeon where you're searching for shit, but they give the feeling of that more traditional Zelda. This game feels pretty linear. I'm gonna be honest. Yes, at some point it sort of opens up and you can do whatever thing in whatever order you want, but it is pretty linear. It's go here, do this, grab this, go here, do this, grab that, do this, go over here, get this thing, do it, bring it back to me, I'll open this thing, and then you can get into this dungeon where, yep, go into this room, grab a key, open the door, go into this room, grab a key, open the door, puzzle, 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 key, boss. It's like how all Zelda has been traditionally. And I, for one, love those traditional dungeons. I think they're phenomenal. I prefer them, honestly, in, the 2D games, sort of like how this one is, and, over what the 3D games do, but I think it's great. And the fact that those original dungeons are back, I feel like that should appease a lot of fans. I don't know the wider discourse, I think, on this game super duper well. I know what some of my YouTuber friends think about it, and I know what I think about it, and I know what my chat was thinking about it when I was playing the whole thing live. By the way, you can watch the whole thing live, now it's not live, but you can watch the entire playthrough of mine if you'd like. Hold on, this is a tangent. Some people, when I make reviews, they're like, yeah, this bitch does not play video games. I'm like, how? How did I complain about there not being the Splatoon 1 minigame on the gamepad in Splatoon 3 if I didn't play both of those? I don't know. I feel like, I guess that was a terrible example, but I feel like sometimes I'm just like, guys, I play games, okay? I do my best out here, but you know what? Can't appease everybody. But to get back to it, chat, the dungeons are phenomenal, and in each of these dungeons, there is, of course, bosses. And there's gonna be smaller bosses sort of throughout the world, and at other times, or whatever. Without getting into spoiler territory, these bosses are phenomenal. Each of them use a different thing of your moveset in a way, or, it's important to use this different echo for this boss, or use this elemental power against whatever boss, And so I think the way that it plays with your entire arsenal of all the shit that Zelda can do, you can throw out a bunch of random crap, but it's not going to be as efficient as analyzing, oh, this is what this boss needs. I'm gonna throw this out there. This is gonna do X amount of damage. Then I'm gonna get in there, turn into Link, and go crazy on him. And it's just really fun. I think, you know, it's very similar to a lot of the other 2D Zelda bosses, but they're just great. It's greatly designed. It's fun. They're fairly challenging. It's not like a Donkey Kong Country 2 thing where you're gonna be playing this boss for hours and hours, not getting anywhere. You play the boss once. If it's tough, maybe twice. If you really didn't understand what you're supposed to do the first time, maybe 3 times. But like, they're all designed very well, where it's like you can kind of do whatever you want and you will beat these bosses, but it's about doing it as efficiently as you can. Sometimes your methods are not going to be efficient. The very last boss battle, I did it entirely incorrectly. I won't say anything, but afterwards, if you watch my playthrough, my chat was like, wow, that took you a very long time, because this is how I did it, and it was not nearly that long. And I was like, I didn't even register that that was an option. And so it's really interesting to see all the different ways people take the bosses down, and outside of the bosses, it's so interesting to see all the different ways that people get through this game itself. Everybody sort of plays it differently, like how everybody sort of played Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild differently. And I absolutely love that. I think that's one of the most special parts about a new age Zelda, and so the fact that they're blending both of those styles, like I've said many a time throughout this video, is very exciting to me. This overall was a great game with a couple hiccups, right? Hey, menu system for echoes, that's not great. Hey, frame rate, shit the bed occasionally. But as a whole, chat, a wonderful experience. One of my favorite games of the year, probably my favorite game of the year, though I do have to finish Astro Bot, so maybe it could get, you know, slided down there or whatever. But it's a phenomenal game, and I will see you guys in this video. It's a banger, it's a vibe, it's a good time. Thank you guys for hanging out so much.